Hey PowerShell users, in this video I'm going to show you how you can add your own tips to the PowerShell.tiPS module. So the PowerShell.tiPS module is a module that you install and configure, and it can show you a PowerShell tip every time you open your PowerShell prompt, or every day or every week. And so here we can see I've opened up my terminal, and before it even got to the prompt, it just showed me a quick tip for PowerShell. In this case, it's checking for null. And so you can add your own tips to the module to share with other people. And let's see how to do that. So the first thing you need to do is find the GitHub repo. It's just called PowerShell.tiPS under the account DeadlyDog. And in order to create your own tip or to add your own, we'll need to create a pull request. And so to create a pull request, we first have to fork this repository into your own personal GitHub account. So let's do that now. Hit the little down arrow beside fork and say create new fork. And you should see your account here. You might have a work account as well, so make sure you're cloning it into your personal account. And let's go ahead and say create fork, and this just takes a couple seconds. And now that we have the fork created, we can see it's under this account now. This is my alternate account I'm using just to show you this video. And so now we can go ahead and create a branch and open up a pull request with the new tip that you want to submit. So we could create our pull request right on the main branch, but it's good practice to create a new branch. So let's do that. Let's go to the branches and say create new branch. We'll just call this branch new tip and say create. It might not show up. You might have to just refresh the page, but there it is. We can see it. So let's go back to the main page and let's switch to our new tip branch. Okay, and then from here you could, if you wanted, you could clone the Git repository down to your local machine and make all your changes and submit the pull request that way. But I'm going to show you how to do it using GitHub Codespaces, so you don't have to put anything on your local machine. So let's go ahead and say create Codespaces on new tip. That's the branch that we created. And this will just take 2 or 3 minutes to spin up our container and get everything ready to go for us. But we'll be able to add our new pull request and our new tip right in the browser. So let's just give this a moment. Okay, so here we go. The code space is all loaded. That took a couple minutes. But here you can see we're presented with the preview of the README file. And to create our new tip, if you just scroll down to the contributing section, here we go, how to contribute. You'll see step number 3 is to run the new PowerShell script, PowerShell tip script. So you can click on that and it'll open up the file for us. You'll notice on the left it also navigated to it as well. It's under the tools directory, new PowerShell.tiPS1. And so here you can go ahead and hit F5 to run the script, or just hit the little play button up on the top. And so down now in the console, you can see it's asking us for a title for our tip. So I'm going to go ahead and type in here, use PowerShell classes for strongly typed objects. Wow, that looks weird. I guess if it goes past the end of the line, it starts putting new lines in. We won't worry about that though. So here, though, we can see it created our new file. It has the date on it, and it's used PowerShell classes for strongly typed objects. If I go back to the file view, we can see here's our new file. It put it under the PowerShell tips directory. And then you can enter in your tip that you actually want to share with the world. So I'm just going to copy and paste some text that I've prepared in here for using PowerShell classes. And if you have an example too of how to use the tip you're talking about, some example code, you can go ahead and put that in. So here I'm talking about PowerShell classes, so this is just an example of defining a class. And then if you have some links to where people can read more about the tip that you're sharing, you can include up to 3 links at this time. So I have 3, we're going to put them in there. And then the very last thing is you have to say what category your tip belongs to. And so there's a few different categories. In this case, this is a syntax tip. I'm talking about classes which are built into PowerShell. And so that's the syntax. Okay. And so now I have my tip all ready to go. could maybe break this text up into some new lines, but I'm not going to worry about it for now. We can see over on the left here that our source control has a little one icon. So there's one file that's been changed, and this is our new file that we're adding. So we can go ahead and just add a message, add new tip about classes, and we'll go ahead and commit this. And so it's supposed to stage my change before I commit it, but so let's say yes. So it staged it and it committed it. And so now this is committed into my Codespace container. So it has not yet been synced down to my actual GitHub repository fork. It still only lives in this container. So let's go ahead and say sync the changes. There we go. So it says it's been committed. And if I flip back to this tab, so you can see now it says new tip, this branch has been updated. I can do a pull request. So there's two ways you could do pull requests. Back in our Codespace container, over on the left, you can see there's this GitHub extension. So if I wanted to, I could click this button here, create pull request, and I could create my pull request right here. We can see it's already saying it would merge from my new tip branch in my account back to the main branch in the Deadly Dog account, so back to the main repo. So you could go ahead and fill this out and create your pull request that way. Or if you like, you can do it through the web browser as well. So let's just go ahead and say compare and create pull request. Close this. Again, we can see it's going from my account here, the new tip branch, back into the original Deadly Dog PowerShell tips repository. And let's just say create pull request. And I guess normally I should have provided a description there, but you can see the file's changed. Here's our one file that we added, and that's really all that you need to do. And so there is a build and deployment workflow that will need to be approved before it runs. It'll notify you if there was any like spelling mistakes or anything like that. But as long as the build passes, then we'll be able to merge your tip in, and it'll get shared with the world the next time they download the updated version of the module. So the last thing I'll mention here is with Codespaces, they're not free. They are free, but you get, I think, 120 hours free per month. And so if you're not really using Codespaces for much else, you could leave this running. It would automatically close down after 30 minutes. But, you know, it's just good practice to shut down your Codespace when you're not using it anymore. So down on the bottom left, you can click on Codespaces and say Stop Current Codespace. And then this will just stop it. Again, so it stops sort of that running tally for how many minutes you've used of your Codespaces for the month. And then so coming back here, after your pull request gets accepted and it's been merged in, if you want to go ahead and add new tips, you can use the same method again. You could even just reopen that Codespace. Let's just refresh the page. Oh, it took me back to the main account. So let's actually go. Here we go, Dan's alt account. So if we look here at the Codespaces, it should have, oh, but I'm back on the main branch. That's why it doesn't show a Codespace here. If we flipped back to new tip, here we go. Now we see that there is this Codespace on this branch. It's called Ominous Trout. You can go ahead and delete the Codespace if you like. And if you're all done with contributing tips to the module altogether, you can just go ahead and delete the repository altogether, so it's no longer under your account anymore. To do that, you would just go to Settings, scroll down to the very bottom, and delete this repository. And that's all there is to it. So now you know how to contribute your own tips to the PowerShell tips module. Thanks.